This is the height of a 5-inch motor, and at only 2mm taller, this is the height of a KD5. I'm serious, you shouldn't buy one. At only 95 grams, this frame is so light that all you freestyle pilots will buy way too many spare parts when you smash it up. Go buy something that weighs twice as much. Even though it fits a full stack 04 Pro, GPS, hard-mounted XC60 and diversity receiver, it is so compact that only the most experienced builders who want the best performance can handle this challenge. However, once you spend the extra time building a KD5, you unlock extra time in the air on every battery, getting up to 9 minutes of chase footage with an action camera on top. If you want a quad tailored in every way to filming, with no props in view on the 04 or an action camera, with amazing performance and excellent efficiency, then check out this flight footage, feature overview and assembly guide, with a link to buy one in the description. Here it is, the KD5, and the first thing you'll notice, looking all around the frame, is just how slim it is. Look at that. So that is because the motors go inside the arms and are encased inside this unibody top and bottom plate using only 15mm standoffs, so the build height is very slim, and this allows you to fit more of these in your bag or in your cases, super compact for traveling around. It makes the whole thing super light and obviously incredibly stiff. So it's got the sort of KD drones vertical arm design, incredibly stiff in all directions. This means that you can get a very light frame, but a very, very good tune. And what that also means in terms of weight is that I'm getting sort of up to 9 minutes flight time with an action camera, over 10 minutes with just an 04 on this frame, which is super helpful for those longer shots or when you need to be in the air to get multiple shots and you just want to be saving time on set. It's also got no props in view for the 04. So you can see 04 mounting this camera holder up here. And then obviously we've got the action camera mount on top. And if I bring in a built-up one, just like this, you can see how that mounts just on there. You've got no props in view on both. So there's plenty of room having that out the front. You can have that adjustable all the way like that, natively. And then you can just clip your action camera on top like that. Same with the GoPro, Osmo, etc. And then the battery mounts underneath here. So we've got a bottom mounted battery on here. We've got slots for 2 battery straps. You can see those in there. And that allows you to have super good balance on the drone. So again, it tunes really nicely. It brings the moment of inertia in, having the camera on the top, battery on the bottom. Everything is closer into the prop line. It tunes really well. And along with the stiffness and lightweightness of the drone, you get great PID performance out of it, as well as that flight time. We've also got a GPS mount. If I bring this in here, just on the top here. And this is a really nice positioning because, as you can see on here, it isolates the GPS away from the motors, props, away from the VTX antennas, which are out here on the side, away from the receiver antennas. It really just has it isolated in the top there. So you can see nice and far away from everything. You get amazing satellite lock, loads of satellites on this, and it gives you a really good reception, keeping that isolated from everything else. We've also got hard-mounted XC60 on the back, which is really convenient, just plugging in those batteries and popping them out again. Really nice feature to have on there. And then we've also got this mounting pattern. We've got a 30 by 30 mounting pattern on the top. You can see that better on the frame itself here. So if you really wanted to, you could put a KDCM light on there for those bigger cameras, or just mounting anything you wanted really. And then the action camera mount also mounts into those and in the front. Obviously you can just take that off, remove it, save some weight if you're going 04 only. You can see these nice antenna holders for the 04 or for an 03 or extended antennas, whatever you want really. And those just attach on the side. And that gives you really good clearance. So that gets them out of the way of the cameras, gets them out of the way of the props, puts them right in the middle, gives you that nice angled separation for better reception over the two of them. And the nice thing is they can fold down like this for travel, and then you can extend them out so they reach up even more, get some better reception. Same thing, you can have room here in the arms for diversity receiver antennas. I've got the 2.4 ELRS ones on here, and you can fit the diversity receiver just in the back there. Same with the big capacitor. So you're really not missing out on things that you want to fit in the frame, despite it being so compact. And I'll show you how that all fits in. And on the bottom plate here, you can see the mounting. So you've got 30.5 by 30.5 flight stack mounting and 20 by 20 flight stack mounting, both at M3. So you can fit those two different sizes of stacks in there. And you'll want to get a stack that will fit in that 15mm build height. So you can look at the recommended parts list, but anything that will fit in that 15mm build height is quite important. And then you've got 20 by 20 and 25.5 by 25.5 VTX mounting up front. So it'll fit an 03, an 04, a Vista, all that sort of stuff, or any other ESCs that will fit on those mounting patterns within those dimensions. And you'll see how those mount in when we have a look inside. So here it is with the battery on underneath, and this is super good, I find, for hand catching and hand launching, especially if you're on boats or on cliff edges, that sort of thing, or just if you're flying in a place where the floor is full of dust, you don't want to get that in the camera lens when you're taking off. So I use this a lot for hand catching. It keeps the props out the way, it's safe to do, and you can see here the hard mounted XT60, super easy to just plug in and pull out, and it holds it very secure with these two battery straps. The other thing is that this provides good balance, so you can shift it backwards and forwards quite a lot with these two battery straps, or you can just use one if you want to. So if you're using the 04 only, you can balance it out. It sits just on the battery like that, super nice for takeoff. Then if you put your action camera on the front, it gives you this really nice center of the drone. It brings all the moment of inertia in. You can tilt your camera super high. It's not going to hit the battery. You've got loads of space for that. You can balance it well just by moving the battery forward and backwards a little bit. And then also you'll notice it pitches forward a little bit when you're on the ground. So that's what these little feet here are for. And that ensures that the propellers can still spin and you can just take straight off like that and go up. Or you can do the usual hand catch and hand launch. And then when you come down the ground, it's not going to hit the props in front because those little feet protect it and protect both cameras from hitting the floor. So I find this super convenient, frees up space for the GPS in here, and just gives the whole thing a nice compact feel. So this is the KD5 package that you'll get when you order one, and let's take a look inside. So you've got your hardware pack, got your arms, and then you've got your carbon plus some stickers, etc. Put that over there. So here we are. You've got your carbon top and bottom plate wrapped up there. You've got your 4 vertical arms, and then inside your hardware pack, you've got 2 battery straps, standoffs, prints, all the stuff you need. So you've got all your prints you need, 04 camera mounting, XT60 hard mount, GPS mount. This is for the Foxeer M10 GPS, and then if you have a different GPS, you might be able to fit it in here, either modify it, or we'll also provide on the GrabCAD linked on the website a print for the TBS M10 GPS, and you've also got your little VTX antenna mounts here. Got some super sticky battery pad, and then you've got all your 15mm standoffs. You've got a little T6 Torx driver for the M2 screws. Got your little front feet here, those 3D prints, and then you've got all your hardware. So you've got your XT60 hard mount, 3 bags of hardware. This first one here is for the flight controller mounting. So you've got your screws for the 20 by 20 or 30 by 30 flight controller stack, so ESC and flight controller mounting. This is your motor pack. So you've got your M3 by 5 motor screws, and you've also got some washers in here. So if they're slightly too long or if they're sticking up under your motor, you can put some of those underneath. Most motors are fine, but some motors need these. And then you've got everything else in here, all of your parts for putting the frame together, which we'll show you now. So you want to start with your bottom plate, and you can see here I like to put in the stack mounting. So these stack screws secured in with a metal thin nut, and these are M3 thin nuts, thinner than usual. Secure these onto the stack holes, 20 by 20 or 30 by 30, whichever one you're using. I'm going to put the front standoffs on and also back standoffs, and these are the M3 by 15 standoffs. They've got these knurlings on them. You're going to use the M3 by 6 countersunk screws through there like this. Grab your driver and pop those in nice and tight. Put both of those on there. So there are 4 of these in total, 2 on the front, 2 on the back, like that. Got these on the back, these on the front, and then you're going to do the same for these M2 by 15 mil standoffs, and you're going to use these M2 by 6 mil Torx screws. And so I like using Torx because they don't strip out as easily as M2 hex, and you can use your included Torx driver in the kit, or you can use your own one if you like. So these are going to go on the ends of the arms. I'm going to screw in like this and secure in. So you've got 8 of those on the ends of the arms in these positions here. You can see they're all using countersunk screws like this, so that everything is nice and flush, nice and clean. Then your bottom plate should look like this. Now it's prepared, so we're going to put some of the prints on. We can put the FPV camera mount prints on, just like that. So you can see they go outwards in this shape, and then the 04 or 03 or whatever camera you want is going to go in there, like that. And then we're going to put the hard-mounted XT60 on as well. You can do this now, or you can do this later when you're putting your stack in, doing your soldering. It's completely up to you. So this simply slides in like this into the print, like that. And then this goes on the standoffs, like that. And you can see it's fully secured in, nicely hard-mounted. And then you can either solder onto that, or you can do your soldering first and then put this on. It's completely up to you. Now we need our arms. So we've got 4 of these, and we need to insert these M3 normal nuts, so these are the thicker ones, into here. So let me show you how to do that. We take our M3 nut like this, and you want to put it into these slots. You can put it in from either end. Sometimes it's an easier fit in one side, but you're simply going to take it pointy end first and slide it into there and position it in the middle like this. So now you've got 4 of these on here, and some of them will be a loose fit, some of them will be a tight fit. It just depends on the tolerances. Try and get them in there nice and lined up and central, and then we're going to put that on the frame. So if you take a look at your completed arm, you've got all 4 nuts in there, and you can see they go in this orientation. So the flat sides are perpendicular to the arm, and then you've got the pointy sides sticking out like this. So you want all 4 of them nicely in there. Now we'll bring in our bottom plate, and I like to have all of these facing up, so you've got this sort of arch like that. It doesn't actually matter. All that matters here is that you've got this thicker side, and this is on the inside of the drone. So there are 4 positions for these, and they're just going to slot in like this into the arm. If I show you that from the side, you can see that they slot in just like this, and then we're going to secure them with some screws so they slot in just like that. And then holding that in place, we've got our M3 by 6 countersunk screws, same that we use for the standoffs, and we're going to put those in here like this. Use your 2 mil driver and secure it in like that. And you can see there that screw has gone through the carbon hole into the nut, and now that is fully securing that down. We're going to do the same thing on here, just like that. Tighten that down, and now this arm is very securely attached vertically to the carbon plate. So that is super strong, and that's going to provide a huge amount of stiffness in this direction. And once those are all clamped in all together, the thing is very light but very, very stiff. So now we're just going to repeat that for the other 3 arms. And now our bottom plate frame assembly is finished, and I've also just added on these 2 little feet prints, so you can just use the longer M2x10 screws there instead of the M2x6 Samsung screws. And those are button heads, and there's just a washer underneath that button head that you can see in there to secure it down. So your frame should look like this. So now I'm going to bring in a frame with the electronics mounted in, and I'm going to show you where everything goes. And before you put the flight stack on, either 20x20 or 30x30, I would recommend putting the battery strap underneath. You can put it on afterwards, but it's very, very tricky, and because it's such a tight build, you want that squished in there a little bit. So I would recommend putting both of them on first through here, and then mounting your electronics on the inside. You also notice this little cutout for ESC plugs, so you can see in there's a little cutout, and that allows the ESC plug to go underneath and inside the frame. So give you a little bit more stack height, and you can put your sticky battery pads on at the same time. So I like to put the stack in first, and you can see from here everything is a very tight fit, but it will fit in there if you get the right parts. So your stack, I'm using the HGLRC Spectre stack in here, and that does fit, and I mounted the flight controller upside down. So you need to check whether your stack is going to fit into that 15mm build height, and these slim M3 metal nuts are going to help with that by really reducing that stack height down. Another thing to look out for here is the USB placement. So I've got my USB-C sticking in here. This flight controller will work in both orientations, but by having it upside down, it gives me a lot easier access to the USB-C, and it sits just above the ESC like that. So something to note here is these very short ESC wires to the hard-mounted XT60. So what I would recommend is soldering them onto the XT60, then putting the XT60 on the drone, measuring them out, and then cutting them to length, exactly where you want to put them on your ESC, and then just soldering them down to the ESC. Got a capacitor running off some short wires here, and that's a 50 volt 1000 microfarad capacitor with a spike absorber on top. So it's a tight fit, but you can fit it in there, and what I've done here is just zip tied it with 2 zip ties to this little section coming off the arm. On the other side, we've got the ELRS diversity receiver, and again, that's just zip tied in here to this section of the arm. After installing your stack, I would put the motors on, and you can see here, I've got the M3x5 button head screws, and those are working perfectly fine with these motors. Some motors, you want to put a washer underneath one of these to stop them hitting the coils, but these X-Nova 2207s are perfectly fine, and they fit in here. You want to use 2207, 2206 motors in here, 2208 even, and the really important thing is to make sure that they're going to fit inside here. So the dimension you're looking for is about 28mm. Now you can have them going up to 30mm, and that's based on the hole here that the motor sits inside. However, depending on tolerances and the manufacturing of your motors, it might be a little bit too tight and it might rub against the edges. So I'd recommend 29mm or under for the diameter of your motor so it fits snugly inside the arms. And then in terms of motor wiring, you're just going to have them running alongside the arms. I put 1 zip tie in here to keep them secure, and then going into the motor. These ones are a little bit long, but you should just be able to have them going straight into the ESC without any of this extra wiring here. I've put the diversity antennas for my ExpressRS receiver inside the arm, and you can see them in here. You can just zip tie them with a couple of zip ties so that they're secured in those holes and they sit nicely underneath the prop line. Then obviously you've got the camera mounted on the front with these 2 screws, or just 1 screw if you're using a different camera, or you can modify this if you're using an even different camera. I've got the 04 antennas coming out the side, and they're zip tied into these little prints like so, and then those are going to be zip tied onto the top plate when we button that all up. I've got the GPS cable coming off here out of the flight controller and just round the side, because that's going to go through the top plate and then plug in when we put that on. In terms of preparation of the top plate, all you need to do is mount your GPS print like we've done so here, and this is just a really tight friction fit and it keeps it super secure. So you pop that in and then you slide the GPS in, and that is a very nice secure fit, so that's not going to fall off. If you want to have an action camera, then you're going to want to put the action camera mount on, and if you want this, or if you want any other mounting on the top, then you want to put in these 4 M3 press nuts, and you want to do that before you put this top plate in. So if I take this one as an example, you can see these are in here. You just put these on the underside, you take an M3 screw and a washer, put it on top, and then crank those down and secure those press nuts in the usual way. And then what we want to do is line everything up and put our top plate on like so. And remembering this GPS cable, that's going to go through this hole here. And you can make this the right length so it plugs in exactly, and then I'm just going to leave it there for now. Make sure you're not pinching any wires when you close this up, and we want to line up all of these slots with the arms and then click everything into place so that it lines up and snaps in. And make sure you're not pinching any cables. Make sure everything is nice and tight, compact, and it should all snap into place. So there we go, that's all in position. And then I'm just going to put in a couple of these M3x6 countersunk screws. I'm just going to put in a couple of these in here to secure everything down. And then I can focus on tightening everything else up. So it's now secure, this isn't going to come off, and I can focus on putting everything else in position. So then you're going to want to take the rest of your M3x6 countersunk screws and just tighten down the arms like you did on the bottom plate. Then you also want to take these and put them in the back to secure that XT60. And then you can either put 2 more M3x6 countersunk screws in here if you're going to go 04 only, and I'm going to put this action camera mount on here, so that's just going to go like this. Now at this stage, you want to take your M2x6 Torx countersunk screws, these little ones here, and you want to put those on the end of the arm to secure the top plate in place, just like this. And I'll do the same for all 8 of them. And now your arms are secured, and these end bits are now very, very solid with the motor inside. At this point, I'm going to plug my GPS cable in. Just like that. And that's nice and tucked away now. So I just use these little thin zip ties, and these prints basically pop into place like that. And then you can zip tie around them, they've got a little ridge on them. You can just run a zip tie around like this. Do the same thing for the other side. And there is the completed KD5 build. Super compact, ridiculously stiff, great flight time, nice and light, easy GPS and antenna positioning. You can see here 1, 2, 3 sets of different antennas, all separated from each other, all getting great signal. You can put these ones at the front if you want, you can put them anywhere you like. Okay, so let me show you how to put the props on. After you wear in your prop nuts a little bit with these little nylon bits on top, it'll be just as normal. You just put your prop on, screw it in, and then use your prop tool to tighten it up as normal, and everything is perfectly fine. So that works great now. However, when your prop nuts and your motors are brand new, these nylon bits will be a lot stiffer and it might be tricky to do. So you want to get your prop on, put your nylock nut on top as usual, and then you want to get a 2mm driver or whatever size screw is in your motor in the bottom of the shaft, and you can see this convenient hole, so you can place that in there. And now that is connected directly to the motor shaft underneath. So you can use this and use your prop tool and tighten it like this without having to get your hands in here to grip around the motor, because there's this cage around it, so it's a little bit harder. And then once it's tight enough, you can just grip around the prop and tighten it super tight as normal. And then it's perfectly fine. And you can do the same thing when trying to undo them. You can stick your driver in there and use your prop tool and undo them that way, instead of having to grip around the motor, because there's not as much to grip around. And you can do the same thing here and just put all of your props on. And for those of you that want to take on this challenging build, I promise you that it's worth it. You can get amazing flight time, really good agility, and all these fantastic features packed into one super slim frame. Just head down to the description, click on the link to get one from the website. We ship worldwide, and I hope that you really enjoy them, and I can't wait to see some of the footage.